So it's been a long time since we've done a KrakCast Weekend episode. This is where we kind of take a break from our normal subject matter and talk about just random other stuff that we like. This time it's kind of a review, but it's just a discussion as well about another show on Netflix. Boy, Netflix is loving this corona lockdown, let's be honest. Business is really good for Netflix. Between The Tiger King and The Last Dance, which is our subject for today. Last Dance, 10-part series on Michael Jordan and the Bulls of the 1990s. Obviously a must-see if you're a fan of basketball, if you're a fan of Michael Jordan. But Dave, watching The Last Dance, one thing that stood out to me was that you don't have to be a sports fan to enjoy this. In fact, there are kind of interesting subplots and storylines for people who would not describe themselves as sports fans at all. So make the case why this is for pretty much a general audience. Almost anybody can watch this and enjoy it.
I think a sports fan would much more enjoy it than a non-sports fan, though, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, of course. But what I mean is, like, in terms of like leadership and determination and teamwork and goals,
it's a fascinating
discipline and things like that.
Compelling drama. The first thing you'd be asking yourself as a non-sports fan is, "Whoa, 10 hours! Jesus, we could do the whole history of World War II in 10 hours." But actually, the concept's pretty great because it's called The Last Dance because Phil Jackson famously told his players at the start of that.
Wait a second. I forgot. I should have mentioned. We assume that if you're listening, you've already seen this. Let's not dance around spoilers. Let's just talk about this. Let's just talk.
They won.
Yeah. Let's just talk as if everybody listening has watched it and knows exactly what's going to happen.
I haven't seen it.
We know what it's called. Yeah, Phil Jackson, Last Dance. They're going to break up the team after the 1998 championship. And yeah, but it's even though you know what's going to happen, Dave, it's still engrossing in lots of places.
Yeah, so it's framed around this incredible, never seen before, behind the scenes footage, carefully edited, no doubt, to present a kind of narrative. But we'll get to that later. The documentary itself is really engaging. It's a collection of talking heads. Well shot, good questions, direct. I thought Michael Jordan comes across really well for the reason that he doesn't try and hide who he is in any way, shape or form. I thought he engaged with it very well. And what I like to see in the subject of a documentary is honesty. I want to see your actual reactions to the things that happen in your career. And he's delightfully mean and sneering and petty.
He's got some great eyebrows.
So petty. It's so great, man. You know, it's so brilliant to hear him, vocalize it all. But anyway, if you're a non-sports fan, that's what you asked me, right? So it starts hour one. It starts at the end of the 98 season starting. Jerry Krause is the general manager, God rest his soul, and he's thinking about breaking up the team, and he basically publicly states that Phil Jackson's finished, no way he coaches the team next season. Jordan can't believe this. They're kind of, they might be coming to the end of a cycle maybe, but they're still the best team in the world. But anyway, a lot of rows start, Pippen's out at the start of the season, right? So that's the dramatic start, but then it cuts right to the start of his career in the early 80s when he's
a lot of jumping back and forth, yeah.
And by jumping back and forth, that's the kind of, they work backwards through the sequence. So, 1 week it'll be the 91 story mixed with the 98.
And introducing the subplots of how different people join the team, how the chemistry comes together and things like that.
It's incredible.
I agree with you that Jordan does come across very well. But at the same time, though, let's be honest, this series doesn't happen without his approval and without his participation, and that gives him enormous editorial control over this. And so, while I'll agree with you that he comes across well, and there's a lot of honesty, and yes, it does touch upon some issues that are probably a little bit embarrassing for him, his gambling situation and how he treated some of his teammates. But at the same time, though, I kind of find it hard to believe that they didn't really push him past any boundaries that he didn't make clear at the very beginning of the production.
Well, what would you have liked to ask specifically?
No. I mean, for example, the series ends with his with the last championship, and he rides off into the sunset. When in fact he returned to the NBA, which wasn't successful at all.
Yeah, but I was thinking
his
about
career
that.
as a general manager has been a disaster. So it kind of picks the highlights, and it's
No. But in the context, the documentary is
it's
capped
made to make him look good.
It's capped at 98. It's called The Last Dance. There has to be if they went into the Wizards stuff and his ownership and the size of his business contracts. I mean, we could have been a 20-hour documentary. I mean, for God's sake. I mean, I disagree with that. What I think he is addressed very well are some of the more controversial moments in his career.
Yeah.
And I think he was very honest and heartfelt. The media basically, drove him out of the sport. He was grieving his father, who was murdered. The case was solved. The facts of the case were there for everyone to see. It was a horrific murder. His father pulled in for a nap at the side of the road and was robbed and shot, I believe it was, and pulled out and buried.
It made it extra painful with all the speculation that this was somehow connected to his gambling.
He just
problem.
come out through an investigation for his gambling, where the NBA had cleared him and said, you know what, he gambles a lot, but he earns a lot of money, and basically it's a small percentage of his income. We don't think it's a problem for him at all because it's something he enjoys doing. He was very honest about it. The end, case closed. But because Jordan and his father used to gamble together, God forgive, like most loads of father-sons who love sport around the world, columnists, gossip columnists more so than serious journalists, started to draw these connections. Oh, maybe there was something shady going on. A real kick in the balls for Jordan. He's waiting for somebody to kind of say, defend him on this one.
One of the guys on the show says it wasn't journalism's finest hour.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's kind of embarrassing, the speculation trying to connect what happened to his dad and gambling and things like that.
And by the way, can we just dwell on this for a second for people who haven't seen it?
No, we're talking to people who have seen it.
Yeah, or people who haven't seen it. I'm talking to the whole church, John. There's 2 three-peats and there's 2 years in the middle. And in first year in the middle and a year and a half, he goes to play A-League baseball, basically the championship, of baseball just below the major leagues. What extraordinary...
No, kind of, not exactly.
What an extraordinary decision for the most highly paid, highly sought after athlete in the world to do. Can you imagine if Lionel Messi turned around and said, you know what, I'm playing tennis next year? I'm having a go at it.
Yeah, nothing to prove to anybody. Super successful,
rich. You
rich.
That, man.
Yeah, sure.
And have you seen Jordan Rides the Bus, the ESPN documentary?
Yeah.
All of his teammates say you couldn't see this guy taking it more seriously. And that to me says so much about this chap. There's a moment in the documentary, my favourite moment in the documentary, and it comes during an interview where basically the question is, were you a bully to your teammates? And by the end of the answer, Michael Jordan starts crying because he was trying to explain, that he didn't mean to hurt anybody and that's what winning meant to him.
He's just got this competitive fire.
And the whole time I'm sitting there going, hang on a fucking second. It's a sports team, all right? I mean, you look at the history of any team sport, there's always a lunatic, crazy captain driving everybody's success, screaming at everybody's face, getting in everybody's grill, demanding standards. That's sport. What's he like on the golf course? What's he like in a private setting? Is he rude to waiters? That's what makes him either an asshole or a bully. Not what he's like in a top level sports dressing room. It's just, I find that whole way of thinking a bit unfair, and that's why I say I thought he came across well in the documentary, because he looks to me like he'd be a bit of crack to go out with. He'd get a bit of slagging going. He'd be up in Tiger Woods' face, giving him shit.
For sure. He's a trash talker.
I'd say everybody loves him when he walks in the room. I have a feeling he's actually a pretty good guy. I don't know.
Let me use the reference to his baseball career to kind of transition to something else. I know we're jumping all over the place here, but one of the ongoing themes throughout the entire series is portraying Jerry Krause in a not a very flattering way. There's a lot of fingers pointed at him, a lot of accusations about how it was his fault, about how he could have handled it in a better way. And I think this is very unfair for a couple of reasons. One, the man is dead, so he can't defend himself. And 2, look, Michael Jordan walked away from the team in 1994. He says, I'm done. Surprise, shocker, I'm finished, right? And Jerry Krause, as the GM, the general manager of the team, isn't it his job to constantly look for ways to improve the roster, right? And if he's got a guy on his team, a guy in the club who he doesn't know if he's going to be there from day to day, how can you blame him for looking at possible trades, for being kind of, always keeping one eye out for a better deal? And so I think the criticism of Krause as a general manager is very, very unfair. Yeah,
I mean, in the last episode, they try and shift it back a little, and surprisingly, it's actually Pippen who makes the points. He had most problems with him due to the fact that he signed a 7-year contract on about $2.5 million a year, which turned out to be a terrible deal since he was pretty much the second best player in the NBA.
He was warned. He was told by the owner of the team. He was told by
everybody. And do you know that Scottie Pippen earned $4 million more in career NBA earnings than Michael Jordan by the time he'd finished? And he actually re-signed for the Bulls years later, and I believe Krause was behind that deal, and they did him right. Pippen isn't happy with his portrayal in the documentary, because there's a controversial episode where he refused to take the court because Phil Jackson called a play to let Steve Kerr, Kukoc, take the winning shot, wasn't it? And this is an extraordinary moment in organised sports. Pippen is, one of the top players in the world. Jordan's out, he's injured, and Pippen's like, it's finally all on his shoulders, But Kukoc is a known clutch player in that circumstance. Like, Jackson's made this play before. He can't understand it. Jackson's like, one of these great coaches. He doesn't fall out with his players, but in this instance, he's just like, well, fuck off then, Scotty, and he makes the play. Kukoc sinks the basket. Scottie Pippen does not come off looking well. And Jordan, in fairness, this is what I like about him. Scottie Pippen is one of his best mates. He makes it very clear how much he respects him and how much of his legacy is tied up together. And he says it a number of times, without Scottie Pippen, there's no Michael Jordan, all that. But he does stick the knife in on that one, doesn't he? He's like, he let himself down, he let the team down. And he's right. Jordan's right. It wasn't Pippen's finest hour. It was his Roberto Duran no mass moment.
There's a lot of tough love. And, maybe, Jordan as the leader of the team on the court anyway, I mean, he takes that job very seriously, the job of a leader. And that sometimes means getting in people's faces. And again, I think that's one of the lessons from watching the whole thing is that, leadership has rough edges sometimes, right? And leadership offends you sometimes, but maybe you need that person to say, look, you're not doing your job. You need to step up. You let us down, right? And not everybody can step into a role like that. And Jordan seems to have done it pretty well.
Yeah, and notice he never gives Rodman any grief because, love him or hate him, whenever he's on the court, Rodman's doing his job. He's totally focused. Yeah. That's all Jordan wants. I mean, the examples in my favourite sport, football, are legion of captains like that, It's necessary. All of team sport is reminding yourself to play harder and be better.
Still, I enjoy it very much. I definitely recommend it. It's just that
it's brilliant. I know
just think with the corporate connections that Jordan has had for 30 years now, that he's surrounded by so many consultants and advisors and PR people and managers that I simply refuse to believe that he said, okay, Netflix people, let's sit down. I'll tell you anything you want to know. And you have editorial permission to go anywhere you want to search. I don't believe that for a minute.
The producers have come out and talked about this since the end of the show. And he said the rules were simple. He said, that's why we use the iPad. There's a great device in this, which I think you're going to see more of in documentaries.
It's really cool, actually. Yeah.
Michael Jordan said to me, he said, look, please, I want to see anything where you've edited our interviews so I know what you're cutting together so it makes sense. That's fair enough in my book. And he said, nothing's off limits. No question is off limits. You can ask me whatever you want. That's the producer maintains, yeah? And then he also said, if someone's saying something about me and you're putting it back to me, I'd like to see what the guy is saying so I can respond properly and I know what he's saying. And it forms some of the greatest parts of the documentary where guys are maybe trash talking him and you see all these extraordinary... he's got a smile on his face when he's telling these stories. He kind of invents these grudges, like any little slight, and next year if you beat him, he's coming back at you,
or if you say the wrong word, if you make some
any little
snarky comment, you're going to pay for it for sure. It's fantastic,
and but that's what's so enjoyable about it. Like people are criticizing it for being a heavily edited Michael Jordan,
like a stage managed
thing. But if you watch it, actually, I think Michael Jordan lays a lot of himself out there, and a lot of people, he must have known a lot of people won't like some of the things he's saying. He's quite matter of fact about the whole Republicans buy sneakers thing. He says, I think it was very good what he said. He goes, look, I respect Muhammad Ali. I never saw myself as a politician. I'm just a basketball player. All I focus on is winning, and that's selfish.
Do you think
that's
on that point,
all it is?
I'm glad you reminded me of that. The Republicans don't buy sneakers. He kind of, the point is that he never got mixed up in, discussions about social issues and things like that. Is that the corporate man talking, or do you think he genuinely had no interest in getting mixed up in these fights?
Well, look, to give a broader kind of, political kind of analysis, if I could be so bold, there is an argument made by Obama himself in the documentary that he kind of redefined a stereotype of the African-American successful entertainment athlete. And he became bigger than the sport. I mean, I grew up in Dublin, okay? And everyone watched the NBA highlight show on Channel 4 on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings it was. And we were all obsessed with 90s basketball. I mean, the Dream Team era, this is when the NBA went nuclear. I mean, it's now in 200 countries. It's one of the biggest team sports in the world. That's pretty much all down to the 90s Bulls, right? You
mentioned growing up. Let me have a quick word about my growing up. I'm a little older than you. I got into the NBA in 1981, 1982. I was a huge Dr. J fan, Philadelphia 76ers. And
Dr.
their
J was
big
so
foe
good.
at that time was Boston, so I hated Boston. And then the Lakers were always in the mix. Of course, the Lakers were in the Western Conference, so they didn't play each other a lot until they got to the finals. And so I was seriously into the NBA going into the late 80s. Now, this is as the Laker dynasty at that time was kind of weakening a bit. Boston was they'd seen better days. And this is the rise of Jordan. I can remember 1985, 1986. Michael Jordan scores 56, Bulls win by 2, something like that. It was a one-man team basically from the beginning. And his ascension, the Bulls' ascension to the top of the league, this is the late 80s. They ran into the Pistons, of course, and they finally knocked them off, won their first championship in 91.
Let's pause at the Pistons for a second, because the Pistons...
Bad boys. It was great.
Wow, these were the rough houses of the NBA. I mean, they battered Jordan. Jordan had to put on
everybody,
15 kg in muscle. Isaiah Thomas. What was the big power forward?
Beer.
Oh, God.
Was just a thug right in the middle.
Brutal.
Yeah. Isaiah Thomas was
and
the
Rodman,
leader,
of course.
Rodman was with the Pistons at the time.
Is a member of kind of 2 dynastic teams, which is quite impressive, really, because he caused
but I remember, again, their 1991, their first championship, as the last final seconds of the game ticked off, they're playing the Lakers. I remember thinking to myself, fucking Michael Jordan. God damn, I hated the Bulls. Hated them because they were that good, and they were beating the teams that I used to like. Right, so I had a dislike of the Bulls simply because I liked other teams in the Eastern Conference at the time. But Jordan was, and they make this point in the documentary as well, in the series as well, and other people are making the same point, that Jordan elevated the entire league through his athleticism, through his excellence, through crossing over into the marketing world, which was he was like a pioneer in that sense. He elevated the profile of the entire league, which translated into success for the entire league and more money for the entire league, and in many ways paved the path. Can I say that? Yeah,
paved the way. I think.
Paved the way to the league that we see today, which is very much superstar oriented. Every team has their superstar and a cast of supporting characters. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily, but it's a very different league now than it was 30 years ago, and that's all because of Michael Jordan. Dave, let me ask you a bigger, I like to do bigger picture stuff, right? I'm looking at the headlines over the last couple of days. A few people are coming out, Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, are saying, you know what, that wasn't what I agreed to, or that wasn't what I really said. No, wait a second. Here's my point. Going back to, what was it, 2 years ago? Remember Making a Murderer?
Yeah.
Everybody watched it and suddenly became a legal expert on everything. And then we slowly learned that different people associated with the story said, actually, no, that's not what I said. That's not what happened. And we realized that maybe the producers had an agenda.
Well, I haven't been on makingamurderer.com lately.
Still not finished. A couple of months ago. The Tiger King comes out. Oh my God, everybody's suddenly an expert on lots of things. And then, same thing, we learn everybody associated with it comes forward and says, yeah, I was misrepresented, taken out of context, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're seeing the same thing again with Last Dance. I'm starting to get the idea that maybe Netflix prioritizes narrative and story over facts. And if the facts don't fit that narrative, they say, screw it, go with the narrative and we'll sort it out later.
Hold on a second, right? We've got two different issues here. Pippen is, unfortunately, had to have an uncomfortable conversation about an episode he wishes he could leave behind in his career. It was bound to come up. He shouldn't be sore about the fact he got a chance to take it back, and he dug in the documentary, if you remember. He said about refusing to come in and take the shot and give it to Tony Kukoc. Yeah. He said, I'd do the same thing again. And it didn't go down well. Bulls fans were like, Jesus, Scotty, don't say that. So, he was given his chance to rebut, and I think he's more annoyed himself for his response rather than what Jordan said. But what Jordan said about that was pretty brutal. But that's one case of two guys giving their honest opinion. Okay.
I still think Jordan is
Let me finish.
Okay.
Now okay?
Give me a hand signal when you're done.
Horace had 2 points, okay? One of them I really do agree with, all right? He called me a rat, and then he ratted out the boys for doing coke in the bedroom with all the hookers. He goes, what? I'm a rat, But the thing is, Horace Grant was very good friends with the guy who wrote the expose book. I think his name was Sam Smith or something. And it's considered pretty common knowledge that at least 3 of the Bulls players were giving the guy stories. Jordan wasn't, of course, but the rest of the team were. And Jordan basically calls him a snitch in the show. So I think Horace has got the kind of credible beef. But let's not forget, Horace Grant was happy to go on and be interviewed for hours and wax lyrical about how Jordan was a winner. You know, he never took any of that stuff personal. There's actually, you know, he talks about that in the documentary. There's like one guy who got cut who's like, oh, you hurt my feelings really badly. Like, you know, I mean, whatever.
Can I talk now?
No.
All right, so... Okay, I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I got to say this again. I got to stress this. It's very important to remember that Michael Jordan still makes a lot of money for a lot of people, and he's got Team Jordan. It takes a pretty big room to get everybody on Team Jordan in the same room. He gets the benefit of a lot of doubts. He gets a lot of things spun in a way that portrays him favorably.
Hold on a second.
No, I'm not done this time. Wait a second.
Hold on a second.
And so
every
I'm not done. No,
player.
I'm going to shout you down. Be quiet. So he gets a lot of the benefit of the doubt. And here's a good example of this. In the documentary, he confesses to punching at least two teammates, as I can remember, Bill Winnington and Steve Kerr. And he feels bad about it. He apologizes for it later, right? But this is supposed to show what a leader he is and how, you know, his competitive fire, et cetera, et cetera. I want you to imagine a white basketball player punching two black teammates.
Oh my God, John.
And it being portrayed as evidence of his competitive spirit. It would not be spun in the same way, and you know it's true.
Steve Kerr, who comes across really well in the documentary and gets loads of FaceTime, probably up to an hour across the whole thing.
Well, because of his dad's...
poor little Steve Kerr,
story,
okay?
Yeah.
Who went on to win 2 more championships with the San Antonio Spurs and has won 3 as a coach for the Golden State Warriors. And
is the Spurs? What?
Yeah, Steve Kerr.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a legend of the sport. Like, you know, I mean, his time with Michael Jordan. You think he's afraid of Michael Jordan? All right, there was a bit of shouting in practice. Who cares? Like, you know.
Yeah, but my point is that his physical confrontations with teammates can be spun in a positive way, and in a way that would not necessarily, you know, the other players would not necessarily benefit from. That's what I'm saying. Jordan is a brand. A very powerful brand, a very, very lucrative brand, and there's no way they're going to jeopardize that by putting him in front of the Netflix cameras and exposing him to possible
scandal. He breaks down in
scandal.
tears when it directly
Which
is
makes
addressed.
him look good.
Directly addressed to him that he's a bully. There's loads of footage in the documentary of him berating players. In fact, here's the gas thing. Here's how wrong you are, right? This is amazing how wrong you are. His teammates are now actually sniping back saying what they edited out is us all telling him to fuck off. They made it look like he was able to bully us. We were grown men.
So
Are you joking me?
At what point is the bully on the team? At what point does it cross over from being just an asshole bully to being the motivational inspiration behind the team's success?
Can't be both.
When you're as good a player
That's
as
Dr.
well.
Mike, by the way. He is here.
When you're as good a player as Michael Jordan, then you can be that big an asshole because it's a package, okay? You know?
An asshole package.
An asshole package, yeah. I mean, there's an asshole barrier for genius. There really
It's an
is.
asshole barrier.
And look, I still say, John, look, an asshole threshold, let's call it, okay?
Oh, man.
I still say this,
That's a
right?
weird visual.
The true,
You have a charter.
the true benchmark of to whether or not Michael Jordan is an asshole is not how he behaves in that environment. It's what's he like with his buddies down the bar. You know, is he, as I said, is he polite to the waitress? Does he have a banter with the fans when they come up for an autograph? You know.
Just don't let him get to the darts.
That's a good question. Although I think you got to make it through like 4 layers of security to get close enough to ask for an autograph or to give him the bill in the bar. I don't think he's paid his own bill in a bar in 25 years.
Okay, you're Michael Jordan, yeah? Right? Yeah. You're out, you're having a cigar, you're having a nice brandy, you're talking to a captain of industry who wants to have some FaceTime. Do you say to him, actually, sorry, can you just let all the public through there so they can all get an autograph? No, John, you just accept life in the rope arena.
Maybe.
That your God-given talent allowed you to get into.
Since we're over our time and we wanted to bring Dr. Mike in this. Now, Dr. Mike, not a huge sports fan, not a big basketball fan. However, his contribution here is based on his residence in Chicago at the time between the 2 three-peats, right?
No, actually, I lived for the first three-peat and and for the time in between.
Okay, and you made it to Chicago Stadium or the Delta Center. What's it called in Chicago? The United Center.
United Center now, yeah. I was in the United Center just like a year after it opened, so that's the year after Jordan left, because, you know, the first they were playing in the old stadium, and I moved to Chicago just in 91, just as, you know, I mean, after.
So you were there for the frenzy.
I was, when it all.
So what was it like to be in Chicago when this was going on?
My dad always remembered to park the car in a friend's garage on those nights, because lots of things got broken if the Bulls won or lost.
Did you guys not have a garage?
No, we didn't have a garage, no.
Oh, why not?
Lived in a inner city high rise, so yeah.
Oh, Okay, I don't know how to follow up on that, but all right. So, what can you tell us about just the Bulls win 3 championships? What's it like when people go crazy and there's huge crowds screaming for Michael Jordan and the Bulls?
I mean, you just hear all the music, all the like action, everything outside, gunshots. I mean, it's kind of like a Tuesday.
It is Chicago after all. Yeah.
Because it wasn't a big sport in the city until he came along. The Bears and the Cubs are huge.
Yeah, the Bulls were a disaster before he came along.
Yeah, but I remember because when I moved to Chicago as a kid, I didn't know who the Bulls were. I didn't know what basketball was. I mean, I didn't survive.
You didn't know what basketball was?
Actually, no.
This is where Polish jokes get started, Dr.
I lived in Australia before
the
that.
Polish kid doesn't know basketball.
We played cricket out
wait
there.
a second.
We played knifey spoony.
The Australians are good at basketball. Come on.
Yeah, but
Australians are good at every sport.
That's true.
But this was like the late 80s when I lived there, and like it was like it was soccer, handball, and cricket in our yard.
You have any good cool souvenirs from that time in Chicago with the Bulls?
Actually, through a friend of ours, we this was already in the second repeat, so the three-peat.
Second three-peat. Three-peat.
Yes.
Okay.
Clever, isn't that? I actually got a poster that said, winningest team in with 72 out of 82 wins for that season. And when they won that season, when they won that championship, I also got a championship pennant signed by Wellington from that team.
Winnington.
What was your favorite Bulls team, John?
Bill Winnington, not Wellington. But
I was worried I was going to
that's
say.
how much of a surprise. That's how much of a fan you are.
I was going to say Will Bellington.
Close enough. Dave, what?
What was your favorite vintage of Bulls? Did you have a favorite year when you thought they were pre-Rodman or post?
I remember being a Michael Jordan fan, even though I hated the Bulls. You had to respect his talent. This would have been, was it 86 or 87? The year this is in the Last Dance. The year where Jordan dropped like 64 points on the Celtics in Boston.
Yeah, and they still lost.
They still lost. Again, Jordan scored 64, Bulls lose.
Larry Bird is so smug. He's like, yeah, unfortunately we were able to get the win though.
But I watched that game live. That's how old I am. I watched that game live thinking, and I remember thinking, wow, this guy is pretty good. So I liked Jordan before they started winning, but I think you have to go deeper. Nobody's interested. Nobody cares. But you have to go deeper into my own backstory. When your sports consciousness begins by supporting the worst team in the National Football League, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you have an automatic default to supporting the underdog. You always hate the dominant team, and you always support the underdog. So even to this day, it's the same for me. So I could never, ever support the Bulls of the 90s or any Lakers team because they're the big team that won everything. The Manchester United, the Barcelona, the whoever. I say, fuck you. I hope you lose every game because
they're all devastated.
Because I grew up supporting losing teams, and so I get mad when other teams win all the time. So yeah, there it is.
Oh.
How was your trip to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium a few months ago?
Speaking of losing teams.
Hey, do you remember the Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, McDonald's ads?
Sure.
Let me say something. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson classy up this series.
Oh, I've heard of Magic Johnson.
And by the way, they're two of America's great sporting celebrities.
A lot of good interviews across the whole series, actually.
Are you with me, John? They should have made a cop movie in the early 80s, 90s.
Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, man. That
Magic and Bird. Huh?
Yeah.
Actually, you're onto something there. Eh? Maybe.
And who would pitch it to Netflix?
Phil Jackson would not have been a good stupid chief. He's not angry.
Sorry, does Phil Jackson's do his shoulders give you the creeps?
Yeah, he's got the freaky shoulders.
What's with the shoulder frame there? It's just really
and the like 80s suits he wears, like the way
the suspenders or braces. Or
he's got some record. What has he got? Like 11 championships.
He's got like 93 championships.
And he won them as a player as well.
He went from
right?
the Bulls to the Lakers, and he won with the Knicks. He won as a player. So it's really unfair to be honest.
He's such a dude. He's so calm. It's just amazing to me. Sports coaches, we're always trying to get at like what makes a great coach, And to me, it's always that they're all quite different. It's that they're compelling characters. There's a great stuff.
He's a bit of an oddball, actually.
There's
very much of an oddball.
Though, you lean in when he's talking,
But you know what? You know what makes him a really good coach is having Michael Jordan on his team. That's what made him an excellent coach.
But Jordan himself says he gets you to buy into the process, the triangle offense. Yeah. The whole team was structured around Jordan. Jordan loved the previous coach because the previous coach was big. Jordan run the ball.
Doug Collins was his name. Yeah.
So basically, Phil Jackson comes in and says to him, "Look,
sorry, I'm laughing because Doug Collins' his strategy was give the ball to Jordan and move. Get out of the way."
But basically, Phil Jackson comes in and says, "Look, we've made some good trades. We've a much better team now. I need you to buy into this triangle
We're predictable giving it to Jordan all the time. That was his thing.
Well, right? Jordan knew that himself. He could see how good Pippen was. He could see it all developing. And, it's an amazing story, really.
Make a prediction, Dave. After Tiger King, we're going to have more Tiger King. I was a Utah
Jazz man myself in Dublin.
After the success of Last Dance, I think we're going to see, the next Last Dance, other teams, other kind of sports-focused dynasty histories. I
mean, this is out of the ESPN catalog, and they are the absolute king of sports documentaries. They're 4 hour, 2-part special about Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong airs this Sunday night, and I'm gonna check that out.
The whole 30 for 30 thing is just amazing. Yeah, so.
Unbelievable.
So they know what they're doing, but I strongly suspect that whether it's the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s or maybe go to another sport, the Edmonton Oilers
team
of the 80s, or the go to baseball. Let's go to not the fucking Yankees, please. No. But I think this is going to be the start of a trend because it's a big hit. And once something is successful, they want to do it again and again and again.
Well, I mean, the question is, does LeBron go 5 hours while he's still playing, and maybe a 10-hour documentary when he retires? I mean, the LeBron one's a great story. You could even say there's possibly a better narrative arc because of coming back to Cleveland and taking that championship. I mean, that'll go down well in documentaryville eventually, whenever they get to that.
Would set the internet on fire, comparing and contrasting the Jordan series and the LeBron series.
I thought there's a lovely moment where Karl Malone mounts the bus to congratulate Michael.
Very classy. Yeah.
And Michael, in fairness to him, is very tender in his response, and he shows great respect for the other legends of the game. As he says when he wins that first champion, he goes, "Now people can compare me to Larry and Magic," and that's what I always wanted.
Well, there's the scene though where he meets with Larry. This is when Larry Bird.
Oh my God, that's brutal.
When he's the manager of the Pacers, and after they knock him off, he sees him backstage, so to speak, and he says, "Fuck you, bitch." In a friendly way,
in a nice way. But him and Larry are cool,
Yeah, they're very cool. But
and Larry Bird and Magic, as they say, are brilliant in the documentary.
It does show that they are professionals, and away from the court, they can they can have a good relationship and be friends, even though they're super competitive on the court. But great series all around. I agree with Dave. I'm not sure why it has to be 10 hours exactly. A lot of fluff, a lot of filler.
No. That wasn't my argument at all. No? I kind of started.
Let's say it was.
I started from the premise of I'm sure you would wonder how they could fill 10 hours, and then I thought the whole point of this piece was to say that they actually did quite a good job.
I think The Last Dance is easily twice as long as it needs to be.
Did you not like it? You hate everything.
Again, maybe it's because I liked it, but maybe it's because I was there the first time. I saw it live. I remember this. I know the stories already. I don't need to see it again. But I understand for younger people, anybody under the age of about 30 has no memory of this. So for them, it's it's archival stuff. It's documentary stuff, and I get that. But I didn't need to watch it. I knew what was going to happen. I remember all those series. I know who won all the series. The Bulls. The Bulls. They won all the series.
Wow, John, that the Chicago Bulls won 6 championships.
The backstory of Rodman, the backstory of Pippen, how they came together. I get all of that. So none of this was new to me.
All right, John, but to see the footage again of Rodman frustrating the early Bulls and all, the Rodman episodes, by the way, are the highlight. I think it's the third and fourth episodes focus on him quite a lot.
What an oddball.
They're absolutely brilliant. But what's the word I'm looking here when things are kind of opposite? Because the way he plays the game is so
paradoxical. Yeah, once
diametrically opposed to what you consider his juxtaposition to his personality.
Well, he can disappear for a few days to strip clubs and resurface and be ready to go back to work.
He tells a great story. He goes, I realised as my specialism was shifting with the Pistons and I was going to be playing for rebounds all the time, and I had a simple thing. I got 6 of my mates to line up in the court till about 3 or 4 in the morning, and he just kept shooting off the hoop, and I just studied the trajectory of the ball. And when you watch it, he dominates these games. He's just, and Jordan never gives him any crap in training. And he's never, he's out drinking every night. Jordan's just I know he'd be focused.
Carmen Electra didn't come across very well. She's kind of a bubblehead, isn't she?
I thought she was game ball for telling the story. I thought it was funny. One of the best stories in the documentary is told by Carmen Electra when Phil Jackson, Jordan Rodman's been focusing really hard and not going drinking because Pippen's been injured. And then Pippen comes back. And Rodman says, I need a little break, coach. And Pippen's back here and going on a bender. Phil Jackson's be back in 2 days. Rodman's still out drinking in 2 days. Michael Jordan and the boys hightail up to Vegas to drag him out of the hotel room. Carmen Electra's hiding behind the couch, because she doesn't want Michael Jordan to see her in her skinnies, after a night on the batter.
Who hasn't seen her naked? I mean, let's be honest.
Who?
Let's be honest. All right. For anybody still listening, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. KrakCast.pl. It's our website.
It's great. The documentary's great.
It's great. Hit all of our back episodes. Hit the donate button as well. And we'll see you on our next episode of KrakCast Weekend, whenever that might be.